Sleep is something we all take for granted. 8 hours a night, give or take, to recharge and refresh. But what if you were part of an experiment that denied you that basic necessity? What if the purpose of the experiment was far more sinister than you could ever imagine? This is the story of the Insomnia Experiment, a government-funded study that promised to unlock the secrets of the human mind. What it actually did was far more horrifying. It started innocently enough. I was a college student looking for extra cash, and the flyer on the bulletin board seemed perfect. Participants needed for sleep study, generous compensation. I called the number, passed a brief screening, and a week later, I was walking into a sterile white building on the outskirts of town. The facility was impressive, with state-of-the-art equipment and a team of doctors and scientists who assured us that the study was completely safe. They explained that we would be monitored 24/7 and would not be allowed to sleep for an extended period. They wanted to study the effects of prolonged sleep deprivation on the human brain. It sounded simple enough, and the money was too good to pass up. There were 10 of us, all around the same age, all looking for a quick buck. We were assigned individual rooms, each equipped with a bed we weren't allowed to use, a small bathroom, and cameras in every corner. Our vitals were constantly monitored, and we had to check in with a doctor every few hours. The first day was uneventful. We played games, read books, and chatted with each other through an intercom system. By the second day, the fatigue started to set in. Our conversations became more sporadic, and we found it harder to focus on anything. By the third day, things took a darker turn. I began to notice subtle changes in my fellow participants. Sophie, who was usually bubbly and talkative, became withdrawn and paranoid. Mark, the jokester of the group, started muttering to himself and laughing at nothing. The doctors assured us this was normal, just the effects of sleep deprivation. On the fourth day, the hallucinations began. I saw shadows moving in the corners of my room, heard whispers that weren't there. My skin felt like it was crawling with invisible insects. The doctors continued to reassure us, monitoring our every reaction with keen interest. It was on the fifth day that I realized something was terribly wrong. During one of our check-ins, I overheard a conversation between two doctors. They mentioned something about pushing the limits and seeing how far we can go. Their tone wasn't one of concern for our well-being, but rather of excitement, as if we were lab rats in a particularly thrilling experiment. That night, I heard a scream. It was Sophie. Through the intercom, we learned that she had clawed at her own eyes, claiming she saw monsters in the shadows. They took her away, and we never saw her again. The official explanation was a psychotic break, but I knew it was more than that. This experiment was breaking us, and the doctors were letting it happen. The sixth day was a blur of terror and confusion. Mark became increasingly erratic, banging on the walls and shouting obscenities. I started seeing faces in the mirrors, grotesque and twisted, mocking me. I knew they weren't real, but they felt real. Too real. On the seventh day, I decided I had to get out. I didn't care about the money anymore. I just wanted to sleep, to escape the nightmares that plagued my waking hours. I confronted Dr. Stevens, the head of the experiment, demanding to be released. His response chilled me to the bone. "You're not going anywhere," he said with a cold smile. "We're just getting to the interesting part." That night, Mark disappeared. I heard him screaming, pleading for help, but the doctors ignored him. I tried to communicate with the remaining participants, but the intercoms were turned off. We were isolated, left alone with our madness. By the 8th day, I was at my breaking point. I hadn't slept in over a week, and my mind was unraveling. The faces in the mirrors were now constant companions, whispering dark secrets and urging me to do unspeakable things. I fought to hold on to my sanity, but it was slipping away. On the 9th day, the facility lost power. The lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. The emergency lights cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. I knew I had to escape, or I would end up like Sophie and Mark. I used the darkness to my advantage, sneaking out of my room and navigating the hallways by memory. The facility was eerily silent, save for the occasional distant scream. I found an exit and forced it open, stumbling into the cold night air. I ran for what felt like hours until I found a gas station. The attendant gave me a strange look, but let me use the phone. I called the police, who arrived and took me to the hospital. I told them everything, but by then the facility was empty. The doctors, the equipment, everything was gone, as if it had never existed. The police didn't believe me, chalking it up to a psychotic break due to sleep deprivation. But I know what happened. I know the insomnia experiment was real, and I know there are others out there who suffered the same fate. I still can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see the faces, hear the whispers. The experiment never ended. It just changed location. And I fear that one day they will find me again. The screen flickers to life, and the familiar jingle of "Exploring the Abyss" plays. The camera cuts to a group of 4 YouTubers standing in front of an old, decrepit building. Graffiti covers the walls, and the windows are boarded up. It's the perfect setting for their latest adventure. Hey, Abyss Explorers, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into something truly terrifying. You've all heard the stories about the back rooms, right? Endless hallways, abandoned rooms, and a sense of dread that never leaves you. Well, we've got a tip-off about a hidden level that's never been explored before. So join us as we uncover the secrets of the back rooms, says Mark, the leader of the group, his voice full of excitement and a hint of nervousness. The camera follows Mark, Sarah, Alex, and Jenna as they approach a rusty door at the back of the building. Mark holds up a set of keys, jangling them for the camera. Thanks to some connections, we've got access to this place. Let's see what's inside. The door creaks open, revealing a dark, narrow staircase leading down. The group descends, their flashlights cutting through the thick darkness. As they reach the bottom, the air grows colder, and the walls seem to close in around them. "All right, guys, we're officially in the back rooms," Sarah whispers, her breath visible in the frigid air. The corridor stretches out before them, lined with peeling wallpaper and flickering fluorescent lights. It's eerily silent, save for the sound of their footsteps echoing off the walls. As they move deeper into the maze, the group starts to notice strange things. Doors that lead to nowhere, rooms that seem to change when you're not looking, and the constant feeling of being watched. "Did you guys hear that?" Jenna asks, stopping in her tracks. The others pause, straining to listen. There's a faint scratching sound, like nails on a chalkboard, coming from somewhere up ahead. "Probably just rats," Alex says, though his voice lacks confidence. They press on, but the scratching grows louder, more insistent. Suddenly, they stumble upon a room filled with old, discarded furniture. A broken mirror hangs on one wall, reflecting their anxious faces. "Check this out," Mark says, picking up a dusty, leather-bound book from a toppled-over bookshelf. He flips it open, revealing pages filled with cryptic symbols and notes. "What do you think it means?" Sarah asks, leaning in closer to examine the book. Before Mark can answer, the door slams shut behind them, plunging the room into darkness. The scratching sound is now deafening, seeming to come from all directions at once. Panic sets in as they fumble to reopen the door. Alex manages to force it open, and they spill back into the hallway, breathing heavily. "We need to get out of here," Jenna says, her voice trembling. But the hallways have changed. Where once there was a clear path, now there are endless twists and turns, each one looking the same as the last. "We're being watched," Mark says, his eyes darting around the corridor. "I can feel it." As they navigate the labyrinth, they come across more bizarre sights. A room filled with mannequins arranged in a circle, their blank faces staring at the center. A hallway where the floor seems to ripple like water, and a series of doors that lead to the same room, no matter which one they choose. The scratching sound returns, now accompanied by a low, growling noise. The group huddles together, their flashlights creating a small oasis of light in the overwhelming darkness. "What is that?" Alex whispers, his voice barely audible. "I don't know, but we need to keep moving," Mark replies. They turn a corner and come face to face with a shadowy figure. It's humanoid, but its proportions are all wrong. Too tall, too thin, its limbs bending at unnatural angles. It has no eyes, but they can feel its gaze boring into them. "Run!" Mark shouts, and they take off down the hallway, the figure following close behind. It moves silently, gliding over the floor, always just a step behind them. They burst into a large open room, the ceiling high above them and the walls lined with mirrors. The figure stops at the entrance, its head cocked to one side as if considering its next move. "We're trapped," Jenna says, her voice filled with despair. "Not yet," Mark replies, scanning the room for any possible escape route. The mirrors begin to shimmer, and the reflections twist and warp. The group watches in horror as their own images change, becoming distorted and monstrous. The shadowy figure steps into the room, its form flickering in and out of the mirrors. "Stay together," Sarah says, grabbing Mark's hand. As they huddle together, the air grows thick with an oppressive sense of dread. The shadowy figure moves closer, its presence overwhelming. Just when it seems all hope is lost, the room shifts. The mirrors shatter, and the walls fall away, revealing a vast open space filled with a sickly yellow light. The figure dissolves into the light, leaving the group standing in stunned silence. "What just happened?" Alex asks, his voice shaking. I think we found the heart of the back rooms," Mark replies, awe in his voice. The camera cuts back to the group's faces, their expressions a mix of relief and terror. "We made it out," Sarah says, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't think we'll ever be the same." Mark turns to the camera, his face solemn. "If you're watching this, remember, some places are meant to stay hidden. The back rooms are one of them. Don't make the same mistake we did." The screen fades to black, and the familiar jingle of "Exploring the Abyss" plays once more, leaving viewers with a lingering sense of unease and a warning to heed the unknown. Thank you for delving into the darkness with us. If you enjoyed tonight's terror, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more spine-chilling stories. And remember, the next time you hear a noise in the dark, it might just be one of our tales coming to life. Sweet dreams if you can. Subscribe for more nightmares.